Although Joseph disliked thinking or speaking racial epithets, he made an exception for the Gilas. The Gilas are mercenaries who are vicious and predatory, resembling Earth's Gila monsters in every way except for their upright gait. They are ruthless assassins who are solely interested in money, food, and warmth. They lack empathy and sympathy, as well as sentimental interests and a moral compass. Thousands of researchers, including Joseph, question how the species managed to evolve sentience in the first place, given that their total absence of cooperative instincts makes them less likely to benefit from group dynamics. Naturally, none of that is significant. Joseph was in trouble since the Gila mercenaries were searching for him when they arrived. Gilas have no expiration date. Gilas are extremely tough to destroy since their cells simply keep duplicating as they age, which also enables them to simply get larger over time. At only 1.5 meters tall, a mere human, even one with Joseph's armor and skills, cannot hold their own against a smaller, more mature Gila. The tallest of the three Gilas browsing the manufacturing floor was almost 3 meters tall, while the smallest stood at least 2.3 meters tall. A being can choose to fight, to negotiate, or to flee when a dispute is about to break out. They would not bargain with Joseph since he freed a valuable artifact from the Gilas, with the intention of returning it to the museum from where they rightfully stole it. They would kill him for the trouble he caused them, even if he handed them the artifact. It was totally off the table to try to talk his way out of this. Fighting was totally out of the question because Joseph would not survive a battle with any of these beasts, much less all three of them. It was far warmer outside than most people are used to, and it was even warmer inside the plant. The Gilas would benefit greatly from this, as the heat would provide energy to their cold-blooded bodies while depriving Joseph of it. Running was not an option. Even in such a terrible position, Joseph had to be creative. Since his only chance of surviving in this circumstance was creativity, Joseph looked around the manufacturing floor. He checked the upper support beams and the machines. After carefully examining everything, a plan surfaced from the most subconscious part of his mind. The plant was powered by pneumatics, just as many others. However, instead of using thousands of separate compressors, this firm used central compression. There were high-pressure pneumatic lines flowing throughout this factory, which led to a central area, as was evident from the signage throughout. A chamber with reinforcements, a single-doored chamber, an emergency release control that would release all of the pressure from the tanks into the open above the plant, together with a room housing the pressure tanks inside, and an emergency override to that release control so that, in the case that the AI control systems fail, a manufacturing worker might stop the compression. This was his only opportunity. When the Gilas turned to using their noses instead of their sight to detect him, Joseph turned on the active camouflage of his overcoat, hoping that he would buy himself a few more seconds by disappearing into a shimmering distortion in the air. He ran with greater intensity than he had ever used, his legs' muscles screaming with utter fury at their torture. 1,000 pinpricks of anguish shooting through his joints and up into his consciousness with every burning instant. He could not, however, afford to relax. The Gilas were swifter than he was, and he could already hear their thunderous hooves racing in his direction as they gave up their erect posture for swiftness. All other thoughts vanished from Joseph's consciousness as his mind focused only on the control room door. He had no time to think about anything other than running. Suddenly, and without notice, the control room vanished behind a wall of dark green skin as the largest of the Gilas came up before him, cruel teeth glinting the pale orange of the mercury lights as it smiled down at its prey. Without pausing to think, Joseph retreated a little and skidded foot first, sending him flying across the floor between the Gila's enormous trunk-like legs. Using the monster's incredulity as the final deterrent, Joseph leaped to his feet and rushed the remaining distance to reach the control room. The Gilas gathered outside the room as Joseph arrived at the emergency pressure dump controls. Though he didn't understand much of what they were saying, Joseph deduced from what they were saying that they were fighting over who would enter the small room first. One of them assumed it was a trap, while the other two argued about why it couldn't be. One person was convinced that all people were too foolish to set a trap, while the other person was convinced that this particular human didn't have enough time to do so. Joseph used their disagreement as leverage to get the control valve loose in its housing, at which point he yelled at them, "Please, let me go!" knowing full well that making such a request would incite them to violence and awaken their most primal desires to murder him. The third Gila was compelled to take up the center position after the largest shoved the smallest into the space. Joseph said, come on," realizing that he only had one shot and that the other two needed to enter the room. Ideally, they should shut the door after them. The massive beast growled, "You won't slide between my legs again, human meat," as it entered and shut the door. At that moment, Joseph exerted all of his strength to pull on the handle. They all four shielded their ears, the sound so loud. Then the temperature fell sharply. The temperature continued to decline. Joseph felt a chill run down his spine, his body losing heat and his teeth chattering. Joseph, though, was grinning. The three Gilas were hunched over, which was why Joseph was grinning. The rapid drop in temperature had sent all three into a state of torpor. "PVRENRT shitheads," mumbled Joseph as he walked over their bodies. "Boimler's Law or something similar." He yelled and pulled his hand back as soon as he touched the doorknob. "Fuck that," he yelled, then moved his elbow to gently push the locking bar, opening the door. After entering the factory floor's warmer air, he paused to check his watch's temperature log. He read the sign flashing 120°C danger and exclaimed, "Holy shit, that worked way better than I thought it would," despite the fact that the factory's ambient temperature was currently plummeting back to bar 30°C. Joseph thought to himself, "I wonder if that's enough to actually kill them." And then he opened a communication line. "This is Weber, the recovery specialist for Central. The artifact that the Nur-Raflatin stole has been returned to me. I have them at the Wayland Trial Manufacturing Plant's pneumatic control room. They might need to be taken to the hospital. A coroner might even be required. We have received your transmission, recovery specialist Weber. The backup is expected in 7 minutes. Could you tolerate a 7-minute wait, Joseph?" "Control, I think I can get it. Could someone please come grab me a hot cup of coffee?" "A cup of hot coffee?" "Indeed. Remind me to tell you the tale after the paperwork. It's a little bit of one." In the following 3 Ho